everyone. It's Tina Hogan Grant here with my Cuppa A Natter that I like to do twice a month on a Monday. I like to invite authors into my home. We talk about books, writing, life as an author, and whatever comes to mind. And this evening, Rebecca Rosenberg is joining me from California also. How are you this evening?
I am so good, and I'm excited to meet everyone. You guys are so responsive in Tina's posts, and it's fun because I recognize some names and not other ones, so I'm excited to be here.
This is what I like about these chats is that I get to meet new authors, discover new books, just like my readers, but it's also an opportunity for you to meet new readers and introduce them to your work too. Before we get into your books, and I can't wait because we were talking a little bit, behind the scenes, and these just sound fabulous. But before we get started, can you just give us a little background on whatever you feel comfortable sharing with the rest of the world?
Sure. Well, I live in Sonoma, California, and right now, right past this beautiful computer screen, I'm looking out onto fields and fields of beautiful vineyards. And that's why I was inspired to write about the women who created champagne from the 1800s. And every day when I'm sitting here at this desk, I have it right in front of me. I have beautiful Chateau St. Jean, and Tina and I are mountain girls too, because I'm from Colorado, and I also have mountain peaks behind the vineyards. So I'm very blessed, and I live on a lavender farm. And
this wow.
Was the book that I wrote about lavender fields of America and all the beautiful lavender farms that are right here in America. And I thought it would be fun to really chronicle them. And I'll show you a picture from my farm. So when I walked outside, it smells like lavender.
Oh, it's got to smell gorgeous. So you actually grow lavender
and
sell it?
Yes, we grow lavender here with our lavender barn.
Wow. So your house is going to smell gorgeous.
Yeah, we're a lavender farm in the middle of the vineyards. So this is our fields here.
That is awesome. You are full of surprises.
So that has been a really fun thing that we've done for many years. And we started the largest lavender company in America called Sonoma Lavender. And we have sold that. I think it's been 5 years now. And Tina, you probably know about the big fires that started here. And now in Southern California, there are a lot of big fires. Mm-hmm. But our whole farm and house and everything burned completely 5 years ago.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, that was in 2017. So it's 7 years ago. Wow. So we rebuilt and replanted. I have a gorgeous lavender garden, but we're no longer open to the public like we used to be. So now I'm writing full time and enjoying life and enjoying doing stories all about real women. So Tina, you asked me this before. What I love are stories about women. Like this is my baby doe Tabor. From Gold Digger from Colorado. And I just love that these stories that haven't been told by anybody about these courageous, outrageous women like she was, Baby Doe. And also like here is The Secret Life of Mrs. London. This is Jack London's wife who had an affair with Houdini. So once I found that out, and they actually lived in a 1,000-acre ranch right across from us here in the
no way.
Yeah, in the Sonoma Mountains. So I could go and hang out there and write that whole story. So I love writing about real women.
I love this, number one, because it takes place 1800s, 1700s, when women were suppressed. There was so much they weren't supposed to do. And in your books, they, like I said, behind the scenes, they go against all the society rules and just break the barrier. And what I want to ask you, number one, how did you find out about these women? And what the research must have just been fascinating. What from one of the books, like the latest book is Madame Pomeroy, is that the
Yes,
latest one?
Madame Pomeroy.
Okay. First question is, how did you find out about these women? And just give us some insight on what you discovered.
Well, I have loved sparkling wine since I could drink it. 21 years old, that's what I wanted to drink, always sparkling wine. And then when we moved up to Sonoma, now it's been 36 years that we've lived here. I just discovered all these fabulous sparkling wines and became really obsessed with why they're so difficult to make and why they were so expensive. Like champagne is very expensive from France. And so I started to learn the process more and more, and we traveled to France, and I discovered that two of the most famous widows, and I'll tell you about why they're widows. This is one of probably the best-selling champagne in the world, and it's Veuve Clicquot. If you've seen this beautiful orange label, it's world renowned. And do you know, Tina, let's ask everybody in the crowd, do you know what Veuve means?
I do not. Anyone in the comments want to pop up real quick?
Sure. I don't know if we have people. Do we have people
I like
here
learning
yet?
things on these chats. No, you're going to have to tell us. Nope.
Okay. So Veuve means widow.
Oh, widow champagne.
And she named her champagne the Widow Clicquot, which was a huge, huge thing to do because in those days, in the 1800s, women were not allowed to own businesses at all. And for her to come out and say, I'm a widow and this is my champagne, and she was selling all over Europe. And we're going to get into that story a little bit. But for her to stamp on it that I'm a woman, I'm a widow.
And this is what I'm going to do.
Yes. And so the reason that this series of books that I'm writing are called Champagne Widows series is because the only women who could own businesses were widows because so their husband was not there to support them. So they were allowed, Napoleon allowed women who were widows only to own a business. So all of these women that I write about, when they became widows, then they could finally own their own business. And even though they would have affairs and relationships, they had to stay a widow because if they married, then their winery would go to the husband.
Oh, wow. Now, real quick, when they became widows,
yes,
these women, was the champagne business started by their husbands, or is it businesses they started once they became a widow?
Yeah, well, in the case of, first I'm going to show you a picture of the three widows that I've written.
Oh, great photos.
Okay, so this is, the middle one is a picture of Veuve Clicquot, and her name is Barbara Nicole Clicquot, and that is when she's 85, so it's not a very flattering picture, and that's the 1800s. So remember, there were no cameras then, so they didn't take pictures like that. So that's a portrait of her, and she's older. And
I think she looks great.
Yeah, so I'll show you a better picture of this one. That's Madame Pomeroy.
That's another thing too. You said she was 85. That's a long age, an old age.
Yes, she was. She really lived a long time.
Yeah.
And then the one that I'm writing about now is very exciting, and she is Lily Bollinger. And she was more modern. She was in the 60s and 70s. So I'm having fun writing about her because the champagne that she represents is Bollinger, and it was the official champagne of James Bond.
Wow, I love all these props.
Yeah, so this is Bollinger, the champagne of James Bond. So
wow.
that book that I'm writing now is called A License to Thrill, Bond and Bollinger.
You know, I'm going to feel so much smarter when I go to the market and look at champagne bottles now.
Well, it's a lot to know. So I want to tell you, if I can, I'd like to jump into the story of Barbara Nicole. Okay, because you asked me if there was a champagne house before that. And in fact, maybe a good place to start this story would be a little excerpt, a little 4 or 5 minute excerpt from the book. Would that be okay, Tina?
Yep, the stage is yours.
Okay. So this is the moment, and it's at the beginning of the book, where Barbara Nicole Clicquot finds out that she has a very special talent that no one has, and that actually it has made her very persnickety because she has the talent of le nez, the nose, and that means she has an incredible sense of smell. And she can smell whether the grapes were grown on the valley or whether they were grown on the mountain or what kind of grape they were. And she could smell also, since she's living in 1800s, she's smelling the horse manure and the horrible factories that are dyeing the fabrics that are actually made out of arsenic and killing people.
Oh my God.
And so she would be very persnickety because she'd walk in and say, "Oh, what's that? What's that?" And so her family would make fun of her because she always was like, "Oh, that's terrible." But her grandmother knew that it was a great gift. And here's the scene. What exactly does Grandmère have in mind bringing me down here in the Criers? And Criers are caves that occurred naturally. I have pictures of them for you. The Romans excavated these chalk quarries 1,000 years ago, creating an underground web of caves underground. Ah, my Grandmère, she wants to play the sniffing game. How did you set this up? My toes recoil from the cold puddles of spring water. I'm not dead yet, Grandmère croaks. Taking off her fringed bed shawl, she ties it like a blindfold over my eyes. Don't peek. I wouldn't dare. I lift a corner of the shawl and she wraps my fingers like the nuns at St. Pierre les Dames. Quit lollygagging and breathe deep. Grandmère's knobby fingertips knead below my cheekbones, opening my sinus passages to the mineral smell of chalk, the pristine groundwater, oak barrels, the purple aroma of fermenting wine. Grandmère places a bunch of grapes in my hands and brings it to my nose. What comes to you? The grapes smell like ripening pears and a hint of hawthornberry. She chortles and replaces the grapes with another bunch. And what about these? Drawing the aroma into the top of my palate, I picture gypsies around the campfire, smoky, deep, and complex. Smells like grilled toast and coffee. Her next handful of grapes are sticky and soft, the aroma so robust and delicious my tongue longs for a taste. Smells like chocolate-covered cherries. Grandmère wheezes with a rasp and rattle that scares me. I yank off the blindfold. Grandmère, you're ready. She slides a wooden box carved with vineyards and women carrying baskets of grapes on their heads. Open it. Inside lays a gold taste-of-in, a wine tasting cup on a long, heavy neck chain. Your grandpère used this cup to taste wines with the monks at the abbey. Just by smelling the grapes, he could tell you the slope of the hill on which they grew, the exposure to the sun, the minerals in the soil. She closes her papery eyelids and inhaled. He'd lift his nose to the west and smell the ocean. She turns. He'd smell German bratwurst to the northeast. Her head swivels. To the south, the perfume of lavender fields in Provence. Her snaggletooth protrudes when she smiles. Your great-grandpère was le nez, the nose. He passed down his precious gift to you. You are le nez, Barbara Nicole. She lifts the chain over my head and the cup nestles above my breast. You must carry on grandpère's gift. Why haven't you told me about this until now? Your maman Forbid me, she wags her finger, but I'm taking matters into my own hands before I die. And that is the moment that she realizes that her fate in life is to become a grand champagne maker. But the problem is that no one else wants her to do that. And this is a true story. She was actually a very wealthy girl. And her father was the mayor of town, and he also owned a wool factory. And he didn't want her to be a lowly worker in the vineyards and making champagne. So she figured out how she would marry her childhood sweetheart, who actually was mentally ill. He was he really had some schizophrenia, and he couldn't handle pressure. And so after they married and they started buying vineyards and making champagne, he died like 5 years after that. So so that's an answer to your question, is they had started the winery, but it hadn't gone very far. And then he dies, and he dies in a very violent manner. And this all is true. When you read the book, it's all true, and yet it's very colorful. So here, I want to show you a couple of pictures. This is how I picture Barbara Nicole Clicquot when she's in the vineyards and she's discovering that she has this amazing sense of smell.
I love that.
It's so, I like pictures when I'm writing because it helps me visualize what I'm doing.
I love visuals.
And this is where she lived. This is Champagne, France. So you can only call the sparkling wine from Champagne, France, champagne. Otherwise, it has to be called sparkling wine, or it's going to be called Prosecco or something. But that is where she lived. And she dreamed of having her own winery. And this was the original little winery that she started, if you can see.
Now, did you take these pictures?
I've taken some of them, but some of them I gathered. So you asked like how I found these things out. I started traveling to Champagne and seeing these incredible wineries that these women did and hearing the stories about them. And I met with the historians there. So this is what picking grapes looked like in her day in the 1800s.
Right.
You would actually be picking them and putting them into a big barrel in the middle of the vineyards. And you see this man, I'm having trouble figuring out where I'm pointing to. The man is stomping on the grapes. You've heard of that.
I have. What is the benefit of doing that?
Well, you have to. So the way that champagne or any wine is made today is that you pick grapes and they will take it immediately to the winery that I'm looking at right here, and they will crush the grapes. And they do that in barrels just like this. And sometimes they're steel now instead of oak. And they have a top on them, and they press it down and they squeeze the juice out of the bottom. So that makes the initial grape juice that then gets fermented in the cave. So I'm going to show you these caves.
You got some great props. I love these.
Thanks. This is actually, I did take this picture. This is the actual, what they call crayères, but they're wine caves that were excavated underneath the city that she lived in, which was the capital of Champagne. And see, those are bottles. Can you tell those are bottles laying down?
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
Yeah. So the process of making champagne is that you squeeze that juice, and then that ferments over the next 6 or 9 months, and it bubbles up and it gets all yummy. And they add sometimes they'll add yeast to it and a little bit of sugar to get that whole fermentation going. And then in the springtime, they will bottle that in these bottles, and they will start the fermentation process all over again. So that champagne is the only wine that gets 2 fermentation processes. Like wine, regular wine you could drink it right away then in the spring after it does that first fermentation. But in champagne's case, they take out all the dead yeast. Sounds gross, but the dead yeast, and they have it start all over fresh again. So it's a double fermentation, and that's what gives you the bubbles in the bottle.
Oh, that was going to be my question. How do they get the bubbly?
Yeah, that's where the bubbles come from. And I want to show you, let's see, mixing up my pictures, but so we talked about Veuve Clicquot during her life. So I told you that her husband died after she had a child. So he died just 5 years into their marriage. And then she carried on alone. But she had a major problem, and that was Napoleon Bonaparte himself. And she actually knew Napoleon because her father was the mayor and worked for Napoleon. So the problem with Napoleon is that he was waging 15 years of war with Europe. This is something I didn't know. Did you know that, Tina? That there were 15 years of war. He was trying to take over all of Europe. And so he demanded that no French champagne be sold to anyone outside of France. So that hurt her tremendously.
Right.
And so what she does, which is amazing and true story, is she hires an American ship and she disguises her champagne as chocolates and coffee. And she has this American ship sail all the way through the Baltic to Russia. And so this is while Napoleon is trying to conquer Russia. And so he knows her because he knows her father and everything, and he knows what she's doing. And so it's hilarious because when he gets to Russia, he sees her champagne there, and he could have her killed for that because it's.
But he does not. He does not.
Well, they have a little fight here. But
now is all
but
excuse me, is all that in the book?
Yes.
Oh wow.
So what I think some of the people who are in your group have read the book, and I think what's kind of fun about the book is that you get to know about that history in France without having to read, slog through a whole big history book. So you get a little snippet of what's going on with Napoleon and all of his conquests that he's doing. But
it's like a brief history class in your books. I love it.
Yes, it's like a little brief thing. Like this is what I want to show you. Like this is how much history you get. This is the first coalition war. So you go through these wars. So you have just a brief little idea of what was going on there and how she was able to get beyond this. And how this woman did this is beyond me, because they took 10 million men out of, Napoleon took 10 million men out of France to fight his wars. And so she had no staff and that's another reason why it's called Champagne Widows, is because all of those women that were left when their husbands went to war, they were there and they were widows because he killed almost all of them in these wars. It was awful. So Barbara Nicole Clicquot hired those women and taught them all the different jobs that there were in making wine. And so they had jobs that women were never part of. And it was really exciting.
It's fascinating. I mean, the whole thing is fascinating. These wines are still around today, of course. You showed me the bottles. Is it her family that is still running the business?
They've been bought by a big company, but they definitely kept hold of it for a very long time. Actually, she, in the one that I'm writing now, Bollinger, that family still owns that. But what's kind of fun about these three different women is their stories are totally different. Like she was young and she was fighting Napoleon. So that was really cool. But this one, Pommery, this is Pommery. Look how
Right.
beautiful that
I
bottle
love
is.
the blue label.
Of course, these also, at the time that these wines were coming out, they didn't have beautiful packaging
No.
like this. But of course, the women started doing this, you know, making it just a gorgeous bottle. So this is about Madame Pommery, and I want to show you her picture.
Now that's the latest one, right?
Yes.
Yeah. When did that come out?
That came out last year.
Okay.
Last year. So I wish I could write quickly. I wish I could say I wrote quickly, but the research takes me a long time. Like I just started the Bollinger and I'm going to try and finish it in a year, but it usually takes me a year and 9 months.
With the research that you have to do,
it's a lot. Yeah.
That's got to take, half a year at least, if not a year.
It takes a lot. And I do it. I read everything like I'm doing it all again, starting this new book. And I read everything. But then when you start writing, then you have to, okay, so what story am I telling out of all this research? Because I think the readers in your group that have read my books, they will attest to they're not boring. They're about women, and so you're not digging back in history. I know, Tina, you write about modern women. These seemed like modern women. And why? Because they were amazing. They took matters into their own hands and made something happen that nobody was doing at all. In the 1800s, she was the first one.
And they couldn't allow themselves to be suppressed. I mean, they went against the
They could easily. And then I told you she was very rich.
Mm-hmm.
And so her parents wanted her to marry some count and, be part of society. They really had no interest in her working her.
It shows that you've done your research. It's fabulous. I love historical fiction. I absolutely love reading it. I would never write it because of the research. It scares me. It scares me. But love it.
It's a lot, but I find it really fun to read all this stuff and then to figure out what the fun story is behind it. So, I want
to ask you about the covers real quick.
Yes.
The covers are gorgeous. I love how they pop with all the colors.
Thank you.
Did you have a say in the designing of the covers at all?
Yes. I'm looking for my Madame Pommery picture, but I designed, so these are, they are posters. They're real wine posters from that time.
Oh, they are?
Yes. And in fact, this one is Pommery's poster from that time. And I have a giant one on my wall right here. I love this one where she's standing.
They're both gorgeous. I love the colors.
And this one, too, is really from the time. People think that that's supposed to be a 1920s girl, but no, this was done way before that, so it's interesting. And I love how she's riding a cork.
I love it.
So that one, I have a best friend who owns a winery and she uses that on her label.
I love that.
Yeah. So these posters, since they were so old, you can buy that art for use for your book. So that's what I did. Yeah. And I have another one, the book that I just finished writing. I'll show you that artwork. I love, I'm a designer, like I'm a product designer before this with my company. So I love design and everything. And I actually had an ad agency for 20 years. So this is my new cover.
That's gorgeous. Now, what is this one? What is this one?
Well, this one is the book that will be coming out next. And this is the sequel to Gold Digger. So Baby Doe Tabor was her mother. And that picture is actually a portrait of her. Isn't that beautiful?
That is gorgeous.
Yeah, that's actually a picture or a portrait of her. And her daughter's name is Silver Dollar Tabor. And she was a movie picture actress back in the 20s and a burlesque star. So then I found this. I thought that this was a perfect kind of
I love
rendition
that.
of her. Yeah.
So this is going to be her story.
That's going to be Silver Dollar's story. And I know I'm kind of diverting from champagne, but
No, it's fine.
okay. I just finished this book, and this one took me many, many years. Tina, have you ever written a whole book and then threw it out? Like, I don't like
No.
I did.
Oh my goodness, no.
I didn't like how this story was, because it was too depressing. And it was right after COVID. I had written this, and I didn't want it to be that depressing. So I wrote my other books.
You threw the whole book away.
I threw the whole thing out, and I started over last year. And now it is thrilling. It's so thrilling because I uncovered what the problem was with Silver Dollar. So the reason it was depressing is she dies by being scalded to death. And so, that's depressing.
Yeah.
That's depressing. So
my skin just started scrolling when you said that. Oh.
Even though she had like an amazing.
When you wrote Gold Digger, what did you know there was going to be a sequel?
You're kind of freezing up. Hello.
You got me?
Yes.
Okay, there you are. Okay. When you wrote Gold Digger, did you know there was going to be a second book, or did you decide that when you learned about her daughter?
No, I decided later to write about the daughter, because not much is written about the daughter. Mm-hmm. So it would be much more difficult to find out. But then what I uncovered, so I actually discovered her letters to her mother. She wrote her letters and letters from Chicago. And that's where I realized that she is a dissociative personality. Do you know what that means? Like a split personality.
Okay.
And she actually would tell her mother to write her as these different names of women, and to write her and different addresses all through Chicago. But meanwhile, she's a motion picture actress, and she's a burlesque star. And so I was like, okay, I think I've finally figured this out. She has a split personality, and she's living all these lives.
She's living all these lives, yeah.
Yeah, and the fact that she got scalded to death, and they did have a whole inquiry into it, and they never found out who. And then I started putting all this together. She's living there during Prohibition. She's working in the speakeasies of the mafia, and she's doing these shows. So then I just turned this whole idea around and made it just really thrilling. And so it's really kind of a thriller. It is a thriller. And it's got lots of twists and turns in it.
It sounds like you have to play detective too when you're doing the research.
That's what it so your books are kind of have thriller aspects to them, or suspense.
There's romantic suspense is one series, and then the other one is actually biographical fiction based on my life. So yeah, I can relate. And I love writing about strong women that aren't afraid to say what they want, go get what they want, empowering women just like you. So I can relate. With these books, the one that we just talked about, the sequel to Gold Digger, do you have a release date for that one?
I don't. It's at my agent right now, so I'm waiting to see. Fingers crossed. Yeah, I'm waiting to see what she says, and if we'll see how that goes. So I have publishers sometimes, and I publish my own sometimes.
So you're hybrid.
Yes.
Whatever works for you. Yeah.
I do. Like I loved doing these by myself because I love to design it, and I know a lot about this subject and everything. But this one, The Secret Life of Mrs. London, was done by a publisher. But as you probably know, Tina, then you really can't do anything to.
That's why I mean, my debut, and my readers have heard me say this many times, but my debut went to a publisher, and that's when I learned that you do not own your book. It is
Yes.
not yours.
Right.
And for me, I took it personally because I poured my heart and soul into that book. And now
Right.
you're telling me I can't do what I choose with it. And I was actually heartbroken over it because I had no clue. I went in
And you can't tell them what price, or you can't do anything. And it's upsetting. Like, I have less reviews on, this is my debut book. I have less reviews on this, which was now, 7 years ago, than I do on my latest book. And so I can't do anything with it.
And now after that, I couldn't wait for the 2-year contract to be up because I wanted my book back. But after that, I just self-published. I self-published.
Yeah.
And I've written.
I'm tempted to stay that way, but we'll see.
It really is a control issue. I've written 16 books. They do great. I mean, I'm not going to be any Noah Roberts, but I love what I do, and it's my business, and I want to be in control of it. That's it. I do want to pause just for a second and say howdy to some of our readers.
Oh, good.
Let's see who's there, because I've been just fascinated with everything you've been showing us and telling us that I feel like I've been ignoring them. But let's see who's there. I just want to pop up some names, and you probably know a lot of them. But Virgie's there. She said, looking forward to reading your books. And then we have this cover. Miss London is gorgeous. Belinda is here. She says, I love your enthusiasm. And then we have Tina, Rebecca. You both are amazing authors. Lori says, your books sound good. Connie says, this book sounds really good. Bailey says, hello, everyone. I heard Speakeasy and come like a dog. I like that one. Rose is here. She says, hello. I just want to pop up these names. They join us almost every time we do a show. Karen is here. She says, hello. I'm going back a little bit. I saw a B is here. She says she loved Gold Digger.
Oh, good. Well, B, you'll have to check in on Silver Echoes.
And then B says, I read Madam and loved it. I'm going up. Lisa, which is why I love historical fiction. Let's see. And I did. Oh, here she is. Elaine is here. You know Elaine. And I wanted to give a shout out to Elaine because she is the reader that connected us. She's read your books. She mentioned my show to you. And here we are having a chat.
Thank you, Elaine. Thank you.
Yeah, and Elaine supports so many authors. I just want to give her a shout out. It's because we're connecting and having this interview. So thank you, Elaine, for that.
Thank you.
I want to ask you too. I saw the question in here, and I'll never find it again. But someone asked, I'm not sure if they mentioned the last book or all your books, but how much time do you spend on research? Which book has taken the longest time to research?
I would say each book has taken 2 years.
Wow.
Each book kind of takes 2 years. And I asked another historical fiction. I feel like I'm slow. So I asked another historical fiction author on Instagram, like, how long did that book take? And she said something like 4 or 5 years. So I thought, well, okay. But
wow.
I like to be finished with them at 2 years because I feel like, you get a little antsy, like, oh, I gotta wrap this up now. How many times can you read it? I probably read them at least 35 times and reworking everything, making sure, especially this last one that I've done, which is Silver Echoes. That is scary, writing about a split personality and whether the reader will understand what that is and how it affects somebody. Has anyone that's here with us now ever seen someone with a split personality?
I have not. But write about it.
Movies about it, right? Or books.
Oh, I've seen movies about it.
Yeah.
But I have not.
So it's pretty frightening, but this is my theory. I kind of feel like, especially you, Tina, after I've read about you, you have a lot of different personalities, right?
Yes.
Yes. Over your lifetime, you've been a fisherman, you built houses, you know, all these things. And so I kind of feel like all of us have many personalities.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And that this one, this silver dollar found herself in this mafia world and prohibition, and some really terrible things really happened to her. She got raped as a young child by their lawyer,
Oh,
you
wow.
know, not as a child, but as a young woman. And so that really made her split her personalities. And I really discovered that only from reading her letters again to her mother. Like, why is she telling her to send her letters to Rose or Echo or this one or that one? And then I really got it. Wow, she's living different
Two
lives.
different lives, yeah.
And so that was hard to write. Yeah.
I can see how that's being hard, because I have a hard enough time just distinguishing one characteristics or, of my characters. You have to have the same character, but you have to make sure that one part of the character is prominent and the reader knows it's that personality that's coming through. Then the next character, the next,
Yes.
personality, you
This
have
is my little cheat sheets.
So
I put these little pieces of paper on my computer, and they remind me of the 3 top things that I want to come through with this character. For instance, Silver is witty. She's determined to restore the Tabor name, and she's ambitious to be a star. Whereas her alter ego, Echo, is sassy. She's protective of Silver. She manipulates Silver to get her way. She's hungry for life. She's fearless and fun, and she's ruthless. So I have to remind myself every scene that they have to come out that way. And not only that, Tina, you kind of hit on this too. Of course, every character has an arc, right? Mm-hmm. They're one thing at the beginning, and they're a different thing at the end. So you have to follow these 2 people who are really part of the same thing through the arc.
That's a challenge, but
it was a fun challenge.
Sounds like you mastered it, though.
I'm excited about it, and of course. And then there's a whole mystery. It also has Baby Doe Tabor in it, because Baby Doe outlived her daughter. And so it's a double timeline. So you get you have Baby Doe trying to figure out what happened to her daughter, because her daughter disappeared in 1925. And so she's trying to find out what happened. And there's and whatever happened to Silver Dollar affects the Matchless Mind too. So there's another mystery. So it's a really involved book, if you like.
It sounds, it would sound fascinating. And with this one, it is a book 2 of a book. The other books you've written, do you think there'll be other books that are connected with those stories?
Well, the Champagne Widows, I'm writing the 3rd one now. Mm-hmm. And I kind of told you that it's about the connection between Lily Bollinger and James Bond. And what could be kind of more sexy and thrilling as that?
James Bond.
And actually what I did a whole thing talking about characters. I challenged myself to think of how Lily Bollinger was like James Bond. And that helps. So the character traits that she's showing are like James Bond. And she is occupied when the book starts, she is occupied by the Nazis, and they're living in her home while her husband just died, and she's trying to take over. In her case, she's trying to take over a 200-year-old family tradition winery, but she's the only one left to do it. And all the men again are fighting the war. Right. So that's a struggle. So she has to be like James Bond.
These women that took over the wineries, they could not remarry. So I'm assuming they had no children.
2 of them did, and the first 2 that I wrote about did. They had a child, but in those days, in the 1800s, and she was rich already. She was wealthy. It didn't mean much because the wars are going on,
right.
But she was wealthy. So her child went to convent school. Yeah. Oh. So, and then Madame Pommery had 2 children, and the daughter got very involved with the winery, and so did the son. So it was like a family affair. And there, speaking of affairs, she has 2 very juicy, fun affairs.
Oh my goodness.
One with, and these are true stories. So she has a Scottish count that she went to finishing school with, and he wants to marry her, but she can't because she has to keep the winery. And then she has her assistant who's 20 years younger, and that's who she ends up having a clandestine affair with for her whole life.
Wow.
Well, these women are dynamic and they don't give up their personal lives either. I love that about them.
What a fun research though. I mean, it's just fabulous. I mean, I'm intrigued by these books. Okay, I'm going to, you say you write full time. This is your full time career. You write full time. So I
do, yeah.
You write full time. I mean, it's a full time job just with your research alone. When you're not writing, I like to get a little insight on the authors when they're not writing and what they do away from writing. What do you do to get your head away from researching, writing? Do you have any hobbies or travel? Or?
Oh, yes, definitely. We travel all the time. My husband, whoops, I don't want to ruin my cover that I just dropped.
Oh, please don't.
Okay, so my husband is retired. So we sold our lavender business, and my husband is retired, which means that he works 3 or 4 hours every day out in our giant garden. We live on 5 acres here, and it takes a lot to keep, and it's all garden. It's all flat and garden. It's really beautiful. We work out together every day. We eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner together. So he's my hobby. And we travel. He has way too much time on his hands, so he plans our next trips. And he's older, a little older than me, like 10 years older. So
my husband is too.
Yeah. Oh, really? So he's always planning the next trip. And we are going on a safari at the end of this month. So you got to watch I hope you guys will friend me on Instagram and on Facebook, because I'm going to be putting all those great pictures of all the animals. And we've never done that before. So we're going to Tanzania and we're going to Kenya.
Wow.
Yeah, so that'll be exciting.
I know I'm following you.
So he does a lot of those vacations. And of course, next year, I also lead tours through Champagne because I've been there 6 times now. So I did a trip last year for Breathless Wines. If you like sparkling, this is my favorite sparkling California wine, Breathless Wine. You can find it online. And we're doing another trip to Champagne, or through the on the Rhine River next year. So we'll do that next year, and then we're going to Champagne afterwards. And I plan to meet with, when I go to Champagne, I meet with the historians of these wineries. They have great historians that have all the good facts, so we'll do that too.
So when do you leave for Kenya? Or your safari?
We go on the 30th of this month.
Oh, this month?
Yeah, this month.
I'm so
then
jealous.
Every Tuesday afternoon, I play Mahjong.
It's a fun game.
Do you play Mahjong?
I've played it a few times, but not on a regular basis. But it's fun.
It's wild. And we have a group that goes back many, many years, and we keep getting new members, and it's a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. Oh, fabulous! I want to see these pictures of your trip.
Okay, well, please friend me on Facebook and Instagram. It's Rebecca Rosenberg Novelist, and my page is, well, you'll find it, Rebecca Rosenberg Novelist. So
yeah, and I put the links up too in the
cool
video, so those are all up there too.
I have one little question for everyone who's here.
Yeah.
And what I'm going to send you a special little swag prize, whoever wins this. So I'm going to test you on the shapes of champagne glasses. Did you know there are different shapes? So this one, what is this one called? And here, this is Moet and Chandon. And so it's a flat, round cup, and it was supposedly fashioned after Marie Antoinette's breast.
Oh, really?
Yes. So this was the original old-fashioned shape, and now it's a glamorous shape that you might see at a party. So what is that called? And you will find this out in the books as well. And this is actually the shape of glass, and it looks like a flower. I'll give you, oh, it's not Connie. Connie, this is, so you jump to this one. This is the, yes, Rose, you got that, Rose. It's called a coupe. So this one, now I'm getting everybody confused, but this one is a coupe.
Okay.
And this one is the flute. So can you see the difference between these two? One is tall and elegant, and the other one is round. And the reason for these different glasses is this one, the coupe, they used to love that because they could feel the bubbles on their nose. And
on the noses, it's shallow.
Yeah, but then they made this shape, which is a flute, because they realized that all the bubbles were dissipating and floating away and then leaving the flat champagne. So they went to this very narrow shape that's a flute. And you see this in America mostly, I would say. But in Champagne, they use this glass. Does anyone know what this is, what this shape is? And my hint is it looks like a certain flower.
Tulip?
Yes.
Really?
Tina, you win a prize. So the three people who, I think it was Rose Ward, and someone said flute. Was it Connie?
That was Connie.
Yeah.
Wait, Connie. Yeah. Connie said flute.
So I'm going to write down your names, and I
Connie
will send you a
little. Here's Connie right here. And then Rose is easy to remember. She's right
Rose.
here.
I think Rose might be on my mailing list. Also, I do. Thank you, Rose. You look very familiar.
Then here's Connie again.
Okay. Rosenbaum, just like my name almost. Rosenberg.
Yeah, very close. Oh, okay. Fun. I learned so much today. This is incredible.
Well, thank you, Tina. We do have a lot in common, you and I. We're adventurers and have done a lot of things in life.
I'm going to ask you, I don't drink champagne anymore, but is there a secret to getting that cork out easily?
Yes. So this is the champagne cork, and it has the foil there. And first you take the foil off, and then you will have the cage, which is on top. So what you want to do when you have the cage is, I'm holding this like this, is you want to twist you can't really see that. So you twist the wire.
Oh.
You twist that wire, but you have to keep your hand on it like this, because I had my daughter's girlfriend got her eye almost put out with this cork going in your eye. So you want to make sure that you have this down. So you unleash this, and then I want to show you, this is the secret. You have this down. You're not even going to take that cage off. You're going to twist the bottom, not the top. You're going to twist the bottom. And then that gas, so there is so much gas in this that it is going to push the cork out. And because your hand is here, you're going to very easily let it out. And you're supposed to just let it sigh. Just don't pop it. Don't do the pop. Do a little sigh, because you don't want all those bubbles to
explode everywhere.
Yes.
See, I didn't know that either, but keeping the cage on, that makes sense.
Yeah, you leave the cage on. So you unwind it so that it's off, but it's safer that way too.
And I mean, I know very little about wine. You obviously are an expert. I'm going to call you an expert. I hear of wine tasting places where people go to wine tasting.
Yeah.
I've never done this, but I didn't understand how you go from wine to wine and distinguish each taste. Is this something they take in between to kill the taste of the previous wine before they try the next wine? Don't they
Sometimes
kind
you
of
could
blend
do
together?
that. A lot of times they'll have breadstick and you can take a bite of that, or you could have a little sip of water. But this Barbara Nicole, like I told you, she could taste the differences between where it was grown, what kind of soil it was in, what the weather was that year. And in that way, she would mix her blends so that they created the most delicious wine of the year. And so when you're at a wine tasting, and we have right outside my door here, you could go to 100 wineries within a mile. I have so many
Wow.
wineries here. So you want to taste that. You don't want to drink it. You want to just have that on your palate, just that taste, and just savor that taste and understand all those different wines are from different grapes. And they're grown in different places. And if the winery is a good winery, they're going to tell you where it was grown and why it tastes that way. And that's what's kind of fun. So for me, my favorite kind of wine tasting is if you're tasting all one kind of grape, like Chardonnay.
Okay.
And then you get to taste it, and they'll have a map and show you where it was grown and what the weather is like there, and so that it tastes so different. And that is where I really see what these women have brought to Champagne. So a Champagne, I told you, like a Chardonnay is a certain kind of grape, and they can all be the same. But Champagne is always made from 3 different grapes. And so it's more of a recipe. So this is Veuve Clicquot's recipe for the most delicious champagne. So she might use 20% Chardonnay, and I'm making these up, 70% Pinot Noir, and then a little bit of Pinot Meunier for a certain taste. And she'll take them from different parts of her vast vineyards, to make her taste that is delicious. And people, you can't be wrong about tasting wine because everybody's palate is different. So It's just what you like. So I'm amazed. So really these women, so this is the story on Pommery. I know we're running out of time.
You're fine. I can sit here all night.
The story on Pommery is when Veuve Clicquot was making her champagne, everyone liked it sweet, super, super sweet. And so she made very sweet champagne. And she did that by letting the grapes go to the very end, almost right before their raisins. And then she would have that very sweet taste. But here, 50 years later, Madame Pommery decided, I don't like that sweet, syrupy taste in my mouth. I want it dry. And she was the first one who created Brut champagne. If you've heard of Brut, that means dry champagne, and it's very light and not too sweet and not too cloying. So this Pommery invented the kind of champagne that we all drink today. We all drink Brut. We don't drink sweet champagne.
Sweet, no sweet.
Not too much. I mean, not too much sweet champagne is sold. So it's Brut, and she invented it. Well, everyone thought she was crazy at the time.
I'm just fascinated. Lisa's wrong one, but I can also. But Lisa says that they have many good wineries in Michigan.
Yes, I think Lisa, I recognize your name too. I think there are wineries in every state of the union now.
Oh, really?
Yes, I think there are wineries everywhere. But they would have very different tastes. Again, depending on where it's grown and about the quality of the people that or the quality that the people are trying to make, they're going to taste very different.
Incredible. I have learned so much. And I'm seeing the comments saying such a fun chat, great information. This has been a fun, amazing chat. You're an expert as far as champagne is canceled. Elaine, I have absolutely loved this chat tonight. I
Thank
mean,
you,
the
Elaine.
comments are all the same. This has just been incredible. I am walking away so much smarter. I
Well,
really
thank you. This was so much fun and I appreciate it. And if you guys want to get on my newsletter, you can go to RebeccaRosenberg.com. And I do like a monthly newsletter and I put in my travels because my husband's obsessed with traveling. And you'll find out stories of research. And I would love to have you join me.
You're living a wonderful life doing what you love.
Thank you, Tina. You too.
Oh yeah, but before we go, do you want to talk about our giveaways? You are generously doing a giveaway. If you want to tell the readers what that is.
Yeah, I will send. Tina's going to choose 2 winners of a. Sorry, there they are. The 2 paperbacks, signed paperbacks, and then I have my special winners of my little quiz that I will reach out to also, because I think it depends on if what they've read of mine. So I'll figure out something for them.
Now, when you say 2 winners, it's 1 winner per paperback, correct?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
So we'll have 2 winners.
2 winners, 2 paperbacks, but each winner gets 1 paperback.
Right.
Okay, got it. I do a giveaway also every time I do this chat. Most of you know how this works. It's a $5 Amazon gift card, and you simply need to share this video with all your friends, put it on your Facebook page, put it in your favorite book reading groups, whatever you say, and tag me. So that way I know you shared it, and when you do that, you are entered into the drawing for a $5 Amazon gift card.
Very nice.
Rebecca, this has been so much fun.
Thank you.
I adored this, and it's going to be on my podcast in a couple of days. I will send you the link. I'm going to let you say goodnight to our readers, and then we'll be signing off. But readers,
thank you. That was so much fun. Very fun.
It was fun. Thank you for joining us, and I will see you back in the group, and I'll pick the winners in a couple of hours. Okay. I want to go through and see who's been here. And
if anyone has questions, I'm going to get on and answer questions too.
Yes, on the author page. We didn't get to many questions, but there's so much information that Rebecca gave us that she will be happily to go to the author page and answer any of your questions. So if you have any last minute questions, go ahead and put them in your comments, and Rebecca will be over there to answer them. Rebecca, thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Good night, everyone.
One other thing, because it's been so fast. When your next book comes out, we need to get you back on.
Okay.
Yes, we got to do that.
Love it.
All right. Good night, everybody. Have a great night. Thank you, Rebecca.
Bye-bye.